My wife demanded a divorce to marry her wealthy boss who promised her a luxury lifestyle, but he lost everything in a fraud scandal, and now she is begging me to take her back after I built a successful life without her. I am 38 years old and my ex-wife Rebecca is 36. We were married for 12 years before she decided to blow up our entire life together. We met during our mid-20s at a community college where we both attended evening classes while working full-time jobs. Rebecca was studying business administration while I was taking courses in computer science to transition from my warehouse job into tech work. Our early relationship was built on shared struggle and mutual support. We were both working-class kids trying to build better futures for ourselves. Rebecca worked as a receptionist at a dental office during the day and attended classes at night. I had a similar schedule, working at a distribution center and studying programming. We would meet at the library between classes, quiz each other on material, and dream about the life we would build together once we finished our degrees. We got married in a simple ceremony at a local community center with about 50 guests. Neither of us had much money, so we planned everything ourselves on a tight budget. Rebecca wore a dress she found at a consignment shop and I rented my suit. Our honeymoon was a weekend camping trip because that was all we could afford. Despite the modest circumstances, it felt perfect because we were building something together. The first several years of marriage were challenging financially but emotionally fulfilling. I eventually landed an entry-level position as a junior developer at a small software company. The pay was modest, but it was a start in my new career. Rebecca got promoted to office manager at the dental practice and was making decent money. We rented a small apartment and drove used cars, but we were happy and working toward our goals. We talked often about our future plans. We wanted to buy a house eventually, maybe have kids once we were more financially stable, and build comfortable lives. Rebecca would talk about wanting to travel someday, nothing extravagant, but she wanted to see places beyond our small city. I promised her that as my career advanced, we would be able to do all those things together. About 5 years into our marriage, Rebecca got a job offer that seemed like a great opportunity. A luxury real estate firm was looking for someone to manage their main office, and Rebecca's skills were a perfect match. The salary was significantly higher than her dental office position and came with better benefits. She was excited about the opportunity and I encouraged her to take it, happy to see her career advancing. The real estate firm catered to wealthy clients buying and selling high-end properties. Rebecca's boss was a man named Richard Ashford who owned the company. He was in his mid-50s, divorced twice, and from everything Rebecca told me, came from old money. The firm had been in his family for generations and he had expanded it into one of the most prestigious agencies in our region. Initially, Rebecca would come home and tell me about her work days with normal office complaints and funny stories. She mentioned Richard occasionally as someone who was demanding but fair. I paid little attention to these mentions, trusting my wife completely and focused on my own career development. I had recently been promoted to a mid-level developer position and was working long hours on a major project. About 2 years ago, I started noticing subtle changes in Rebecca's behavior and priorities. She became more interested in designer brands and luxury goods. She would come home talking about the million-dollar homes she saw clients touring and the lifestyle those people lived. She started following wealthy influencers on social media and comparing our modest life to their extravagant ones. Rebecca began criticizing aspects of our life that had never bothered her before. She complained about our apartment being too small and outdated. She made comments about my car being embarrassing and old. She would sigh when looking at our furniture from budget stores and talk about how clients at her office had beautiful custom pieces. These comments hurt, but I tried to be understanding, thinking maybe she was just stressed from work. She started spending more money on clothes and accessories, saying she needed to look professional for her job at the luxury firm. I noticed designer labels appearing in our closet and questioned the expense. Rebecca would get defensive, saying she deserved nice things after working so hard. She opened a separate credit card without telling me and started hiding purchases. Around this time, Rebecca began working longer hours and attending more evening events. She explained these were networking functions and client dinners that were important for the business. Richard apparently expected his staff to be available for these high-end social events where wealthy clients gathered. Rebecca said it was part of her job and necessary for career advancement. I trusted Rebecca completely, so I never questioned these late nights or weekend events. I was busy with my own work and assumed my wife was being truthful about her professional obligations. Looking back, there were obvious red flags I ignored because I never imagined she would betray our marriage. I believed we were still working toward our shared goals together. Rebecca started becoming distant emotionally. She seemed less interested in spending time with me and more focused on her phone. She would cancel our date nights claiming she was tired from work. When we did spend time together, she seemed distracted and uninterested in conversation. The warmth and partnership that had defined our relationship for years was disappearing. About 18 months ago, Rebecca announced she wanted to redecorate our apartment. She said she was embarrassed to have anyone visit because our furniture was cheap and outdated. I reminded her we were saving for a house down payment and expensive furniture wasn't a priority. She became angry and accused me of not supporting her needs. This led to our first serious fight in years. The arguments became more frequent. Rebecca would criticize my career progression, saying I should be making more money by now. She compared me to the wealthy clients she met through work, pointing out men my age who were far more successful. She questioned whether I was ambitious enough and said maybe she had settled too early in life. These comments were devastating coming from someone who used to be my biggest supporter. Then one evening about a year ago, Rebecca came home and told me we needed to talk. She sat me down and explained that she was unhappy in our marriage. She said she had grown and changed over the past few years and wanted different things from life. She felt we were no longer compatible and had different values. I was blindsided and asked what had changed, what I could do to fix things between us. Rebecca said there was nothing to fix, that we simply wanted different things now. She talked about wanting to experience a different lifestyle, to have the things she saw every day at work. She said she felt trapped in our modest life and needed more. When I reminded her that we had always planned to build toward a better future together, she said she was tired of waiting and wanted those things now. I asked if there was someone else. Rebecca hesitated before admitting that she had developed feelings for Richard. She claimed nothing physical had happened, but they had grown close through work. She said Richard understood her in ways I never could because he came from a world of wealth and sophistication. She said she needed to explore these feelings and wanted a divorce. The betrayal was crushing. My wife of over a decade was leaving me for her wealthy boss who could give her the luxury lifestyle she now craved. Everything we had built together, all our shared struggles and dreams, meant nothing compared to the promise of money and status. I felt like I was losing not just my wife but my best friend and partner. Rebecca wanted the divorce finalized quickly. She had already consulted a lawyer and had papers drawn up. She claimed it would be simple since we had no children and limited shared assets. She wanted to split everything 50-50 and move on with her life. The cold, businesslike way she handled ending our marriage was shocking considering how we had started our relationship. I signed the divorce papers in a daze. Rebecca moved out within 2 weeks, taking her belongings and half our savings. She left behind the camping gear from our honeymoon and the photos from our wedding, saying she was starting a new chapter and didn't need reminders of the past. The apartment felt empty and cold without her presence. Within a month of our divorce being finalized, Rebecca moved into a luxury condo in the most expensive part of the city. Richard had apparently been paying for it before the divorce was even final, confirming my suspicion that their relationship had been physical for months despite her denials. She posted photos on social media showing her new glamorous life with designer clothes, expensive restaurants, and exotic weekend trips. The first few months after the divorce were devastating. I was depressed, barely eating, and struggling to focus at work. My performance suffered and I worried about losing my job on top of everything else. My family and friends were supportive, but I felt humiliated that my wife had left me for a wealthier man. I questioned everything about myself and our relationship. Slowly, I started putting my life back together. I threw myself into my work with renewed focus and determination. I picked up freelance projects on the side to keep busy and earn extra money. I started going to the gym regularly, partly to fill the empty hours and partly to take care of myself after months of neglect. I reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. My career began to take off in unexpected ways. The freelance work I had taken on led to connections with startup founders who were impressed with my skills. One of them offered me a position as lead developer at his new company with equity in the business. It was a risk leaving my stable job, but I decided to take the chance, having nothing left to lose. The startup was developing software for financial institutions and we quickly gained traction. My shares in the company started becoming valuable as we landed major contracts. Within 6 months, I was making more money than I ever had in my life. Within a year, the company was acquired by a larger firm and my equity payout was substantial. I suddenly had more money than I knew what to do with. I bought a house in a great neighborhood, not to show off but because I could finally afford the home Rebecca and I had dreamed about. I traveled to places I had always wanted to see, discovering I enjoyed solo adventures. I started dating casually, meeting interesting women who appreciated me for who I was rather than what I could provide. My life was fuller and happier than it had been in years. Meanwhile, I heard through mutual friends that Richard's business was struggling. The luxury real estate market had taken a downturn and his firm was overleveraged. There were rumors about financial problems and unpaid debts. Rebecca had apparently quit her job after moving in with Richard, expecting to live as his kept woman in luxury. She posted less frequently on social media and the posts she did share seemed forced and less glamorous than before. About 6 months ago, news broke that Richard was under investigation for fraud. He had been inflating property values and misrepresenting financial information to secure larger commissions. The scandal was huge in our local business community. His assets were frozen while authorities investigated and his firm collapsed almost overnight. Richard went from wealthy businessman to defendant facing serious criminal charges. I heard through the grapevine that Richard's fancy condo was being seized by the bank along with his other properties. Rebecca had to move out with nowhere to go and no income since she had quit her job. Her parents apparently refused to take her in, ashamed of how she had destroyed her marriage for money and status. She was staying with a former co-worker and scrambling to find work. Then one evening about 4 months ago, I came home to find Rebecca sitting on my front porch. She looked terrible, wearing old clothes I recognized from our marriage and having clearly lost weight. Her designer bags and expensive jewelry were gone. She stood up when she saw me, tears already streaming down her face. She asked if we could talk. I invited her inside, curious about what she wanted. Rebecca broke down completely, crying and apologizing for everything. She said leaving me was the biggest mistake of her life. She talked about how Richard had been lying about his finances and living on credit and fraud. She said once the investigation started, his true character emerged and he became cruel and controlling when he could no longer maintain the wealthy facade. Rebecca claimed she had been blinded by the promise of luxury and status. She said she realized too late that what we had together was real and valuable while Richard's world was built on lies. She talked about how she missed our partnership and the life we had been building together. She said she still loved me and wanted another chance to make things right. I listened to everything she said without interrupting. When she finished, I told her calmly that I appreciated her apology but I had moved on. The woman I married, the partner who supported my dreams and shared my struggles, would never have left me for money and status. That woman was gone, replaced by someone who valued luxury over loyalty and chose wealth over our decade of marriage and shared history. Rebecca became desperate, insisting she had changed and learned her lesson. She promised she would be different this time and would never take me for granted again. She talked about how we could rebuild what we lost and start fresh. She even suggested we could use my newfound success to finally live the life we had always planned together. I explained that her timing was telling. She only wanted to reconcile after Richard lost everything and I had become successful. If Richard had maintained his wealth and I was still struggling, she would never have shown up on my porch. She was not apologizing because she genuinely regretted her choices but because those choices had blown up in her face and left her with nothing. Rebecca tried to argue that her feelings were genuine and not about money. I reminded her that she had left me specifically because I couldn't provide the lifestyle Richard promised. She had criticized my career, my ambitions, and our modest life. She had betrayed over a decade of marriage for designer clothes and luxury vacations. Those actions revealed her true values and character. I told Rebecca that while she was living in luxury condos and taking expensive trips, I was rebuilding my life from the ruins of our marriage. I had worked hard, taken risks, and created success on my own. The life I had now was mine, built without her and honestly earned. I had no interest in sharing it with someone who had demonstrated she would abandon me the moment something shinier came along. Rebecca became angry when she realized I was serious about refusing to reconcile. She accused me of being cold and unforgiving. She said everyone makes mistakes and I should be willing to give her another chance. She claimed that if I truly loved her, I would understand she had been confused and manipulated by Richard. She tried to position herself as a victim rather than someone who had made selfish choices. I remained calm and told her that forgiveness did not mean reconciliation. I had forgiven her for my own peace of mind, but that did not obligate me to take her back. She had made adult choices and now faced adult consequences. She chose to divorce me for a wealthier man and that man turned out to be a fraud. Those were the natural results of her decisions. Rebecca started crying again and begging. She said she had nowhere to go and no one to turn to. She asked if I could at least help her financially since we had once meant something to each other. I told her I was not responsible for her financial situation. She had received her share in our divorce and what she did with that money was her choice. She had spent it on luxury items and experiences with Richard rather than saving or investing it wisely. I asked Rebecca to leave my house. She refused at first, saying she deserved another chance after everything we had been through together. I reminded her that she was the one who ended everything we had been through together. She had thrown away our marriage, our partnership, and our shared history for material wealth. The consequences of that choice were hers to bear alone. Finally, I had to threaten to call the police before Rebecca left. She stood on my porch screaming about how I had changed and become heartless. She said I used to be kind and caring but success had made me cruel. The irony of her calling me heartless after abandoning our marriage for money was not lost on me. I closed the door and watched through the window as she finally walked away. Rebecca tried contacting me several more times over the following weeks. She sent long text messages apologizing and begging for help. She called repeatedly until I blocked her number. She even showed up at my workplace once but security escorted her out. Her desperation was evident but it only confirmed that her interest was in what I could provide rather than who I was. I heard from mutual friends that Rebecca eventually found a job at another real estate office, though nothing as prestigious as Richard's firm had been. She was apparently living in a small studio apartment and struggling to pay bills. Her parents had offered some limited financial help but their relationship remained strained. The glamorous life she had sacrificed her marriage for had completely evaporated. Richard was convicted of fraud and sentenced to prison. His remaining assets were liquidated to pay restitution to his victims. The whole scandal destroyed his reputation and legacy. Rebecca had given up a solid marriage and partnership for a fantasy built on criminal activity and lies. She was left with nothing but regret and the consequences of her choices. My life continued to improve. The company I worked for kept growing and my equity became even more valuable. I met someone through friends, a woman named Claire who worked as a teacher. She was down to earth, kind, and valued the same things I did. We started dating and built a relationship based on genuine connection rather than material expectations. Claire knew my whole story and admired how I had rebuilt my life. Rebecca found out about Claire through social media and sent me a vicious message. She accused me of moving on too quickly and replacing her as if our marriage had meant nothing. She claimed Claire could never understand me the way she did after all our years together. The entitlement in her message was staggering given that she had left me for another man and only wanted me back after her choices failed. I did not respond to Rebecca's message. There was nothing left to say to someone who had valued me so little until I became successful. She had her chance to build a life with me through genuine partnership, and she chose to abandon that for empty promises of luxury. Her regret was not about losing me as a person but about losing access to the life I could now provide. My family was proud of how I had handled everything. My mother told me she was glad I had not taken Rebecca back, that my ex-wife had shown her true character by leaving me for money. My father said I had dodged a bullet by finding out what kind of person Rebecca really was before we had children. My sister was just happy to see me thriving and building a new life with someone who appreciated me. Claire and I got engaged last month. The proposal was simple and meaningful, nothing extravagant but filled with genuine love. We are planning a modest wedding focused on celebrating our relationship with people who matter to us. Claire understands that my first marriage failed because my ex-wife valued wealth over partnership, and she has consistently shown that her values are completely different. I occasionally wonder what might have happened if Rebecca had stayed and we had built our life together. Would she have been happy when my success came, or would she have found other reasons to be dissatisfied? I will never know the answer, but I am grateful things worked out the way they did. Her betrayal forced me to rebuild myself into someone stronger and more successful than I might have otherwise become. Rebecca's situation has apparently not improved much. From what I hear, she is still working at the real estate office and living modestly. She deleted most of her social media accounts after her relationship with Richard imploded publicly. She keeps a low profile and has not tried contacting me again since I started dating Claire. Her dreams of luxury and status ended in humiliation and loss. The whole experience taught me valuable lessons about character and values. Someone who truly loves you will support you through struggles rather than abandon you when someone wealthier appears. Money and status are empty without genuine connection and partnership. The grass is not always greener on the other side, sometimes it is just expensive artificial turf covering a foundation of lies. My life now is everything I worked for and more. I have a successful career, financial stability, a beautiful home, and most importantly, a partner who values me for who I am rather than what I can provide. Rebecca threw away something real and valuable for something fake and temporary. She will have to live with those choices for the rest of her life while I move forward with someone who deserves my trust and love. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and refusing to be someone's backup plan. Rebecca wanted me to be there when her better option failed, but I had built a better life without her. She learned too late that some decisions cannot be undone and some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. I hope she eventually finds peace with her choices, but that peace will not include me.